Hi, this is Jeff Curto, and welcome to episode number 200 of Camera Position, the podcast about the creative side of photography. 200. 200 episodes on and off, sometimes more off than on, but here I am at 200 episodes. I'm pretty excited. Thank you to those of you who are still around and still listening 200 episodes later. I really appreciate those of you who have recently written or left comments encouraging me to keep on going. And I very much appreciate all of you who've written in or left comments on the blog or on Facebook. And also those of you who've left reviews on the iTunes store so that more people can find Camera Position and be part of our conversation about what we're trying to do with photography, the why of photography rather than the how. You know, teaching photography, talking about photography is a really interesting thing to have done for a long time. Because in that time, I've seen a lot of trends and a lot of shifts in photography. Well, certainly as a technology, but also trends in the way people have thought about what photography is and what photography can be, or in some cases, what photography should be for some folks. And I think that over that time, one of the things that it's most interesting about the creative process in photography is fear. Fear that a lot of people have of getting it wrong. Getting it wrong. I mean, I suppose that our expert culture that's become so prevalent in our world is a part of that, right? I mean, I don't know, try to go to the hardware store and buy an amateur drill, or go to a houseware store and find an amateur frying pan. You can't do it. They're all professional things, right? So it's this professional mindset that it's going to be, you're going to get a much better hole drilled with a professional drill than an amateur drill. You're going to make a much better omelet with a professional frying pan than you could with a not professional frying pan, with an amateur frying pan. I mean, seriously, go to Crate and Barrel and try to find and ask them for I'm just looking for an amateur frying pan, right? So the whole world is in love with the professional way of doing things and that sense of getting it wrong, of messing up and embarrassing yourself. And that fills so many potential creators with a sense of dread, I guess. I mean, what if I get it wrong? What will people think? And in a way, I guess I can go back to my source for the last podcast, Miles Davis, who said, "Do not fear mistakes. There are none. Do not fear mistakes. There are none." We have to get it wrong in order to get it right. I mean, boy, I think way back to before internet days of trying to figure out how to make an omelet. I really wanted to make really great omelets at home, and I had a good frying pan. I don't know whether it was a professional frying pan or not, but I remember that I cracked a ton of eggs and I read some books. This is back before you could go on YouTube and find 87 chefs to tell you how to do an omelet. But I read a bunch of books about making omelets and, how to make them properly. And I remember I cracked a ton of eggs, and I remember I made a lot of what ended up being scrambled eggs before I started making light, fluffy, delightful stuffed omelets, right? So that idea of allowing yourself to make mistakes, before you can figure out how to actually make the omelet that you want to make, you've got to make a bunch of scrambled eggs first. So creativity is allowing yourself to make mistakes, trying it, finding out what works, figuring out what doesn't work, discovering what you think will be the thing that you want by making a whole bunch of things and discarding the ones that don't work, and then slowly but surely refining the ones that do. So if creativity is allowing yourself to make mistakes, art is knowing which mistakes to keep. It's that process of trying and failing and trying again, and then again incrementally building on the successes that you have to produce something that begins to work more and more and more until you finally have that successful thing that resonates with you. And I think because of that personal resonance, it likely works best for the viewer too. Be persistent because, as we all know, failure is the path of least persistence. Ooh, ouch. Sorry about that, but I couldn't help myself. As I was looking at various ways, researching various ways to think of the concept of mistakes in preparation for this podcast, I came across a great little quote from Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman, the English author of short fiction, novels, comic books, audio, films, a whole bunch of stuff. And he said, "Go and make interesting mistakes. Make amazing mistakes. Make glorious and fantastic mistakes. Break rules. Leave the world more interesting for your being here. Make good art." Those last three words with periods after each of them. Make good art, sort of declaratively, right? So I think that's our marching order for this period of time, is to go out there and make some amazing mistakes, make glorious and fantastic mistakes, as Neil Gaiman says, and make good art, make work that resonates with us, and that work will eventually, I think, resonate with the viewer. Something I wanted to mention, I'll mention it again in the next episode of Camera Position, but mark your calendars. If you're in the Chicago area, I'm going to be giving a talk at the Morton Arboretum Photographic Society. MAPS is what they call them, a great group of photographers that gather once a month at the vast Morton Arboretum in suburban Lisle. And I'll put some information on the website and in the Camera Position app and the PDF and everything else that I do. So I'll put some information about where this is going to be and when this is going to be. April 9th in the evening. It's a Monday, and you're all welcome to come. The MAPS folks love visitors, and so anybody who wants to come and hear me talk about creative process, and that's what I'm going to talk about. And actually, in the next episode, I'll sort of give a little bit of a heads up about what I'll be talking about on April 9th, and we'll talk a little bit about this idea of creative process. So come on out and visit with me, and if you're a podcast listener, come up and say hello. So thanks again for being here, and thanks for your support, and I look forward to talking with you on the next episode of Camera Position, the podcast about the creative side of photography.